All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new, my name is Addy, and today we have a really special episode planned. I'm sitting down with Jimmy Mitchell. He goes by Uncle Jimmy in the online space. Jimmy's a coach for service delivery inside of EasyGrow, which is Charlie Morgan's program. I'm sure you guys have heard of that. He's coached thousands of people, once again, in the online space and agency space, and he's also part of Cameron England's program, License and Skill, which is actually where I came across him first. So I recently joined one of Jimmy's calls, and within 20 minutes, I was genuinely blown away. The guy's an absolute killer, so I thought, why not bring him onto the channel to pick his brain a little bit more and talk more about service delivery and how you guys can actually build a sustainable long-term agency that doesn't just churn through a ton of clients every single month. So if you've been struggling to build an agency that actually gets real results for your clients and operates like a real business, this video is going to answer a lot of the questions you guys probably have, so I know you guys are going to get a crazy amount of value from this. With that being said, Jimmy, welcome to the channel, my friend. I'll let you
Thank
kick
you
things
very
off with
much.
a bit of an introduction.
Thank you very much. Great introduction, and I'm excited to jump on. I don't do many of these kind of interviews, but when you mentioned about it, I was like, actually, this is a really good opportunity to talk about something I really do believe in, which is running an agency sustainably and running an agency that stands the test of time. Because I just don't think enough people fly the flag for that. There's a lot of people that really believe in sell, 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 and then they have a 10% churn rate monthly, and they're just stuck in this cycle of selling all the time. And so a little bit of context on myself. I run an agency called My Online Guy. I've been running that agency for over almost 10 years now. It's 10 years sometime in February, I've forgotten, but it's just about 10 years. I've also got my own program. So I've got a program that's a B2C product helping people like relatively, I'm a little bit older than yourself, so guys with commitments, husband, like wife, kids, mortgage, all that, start marketing agencies part-time, and then transitioning to a full-time income, using the philosophies that got me to where I am today. Because when I started my agency, I was 29, I had two kids, I had a mortgage, a wife, and all the commitments that go with that. So all of the strategies that I've built my agency with and that I teach when I coach are based around building, maximizing return while simultaneously minimizing risk, which is really important for someone that has a lot to risk, right? So like you mentioned, I coach over at EasyGrow, which is a program by Charlie Morgan. He's a pretty famous dude these days, but when I met him, it was me and 20 other people in the program. So I've known him for a very long time. We're good friends. And I've been coaching at EasyGrow for almost 4 years now. And have helped probably 4,500 people in that time in that program. And then more recently, Cameron's program, I coaching there too, mainly around service delivery. But just because I've been running an agency a long time, I've been up the hill, down the hill, everywhere in between. I've seen a lot, and so I can just talk to a lot of general stuff about running an
Yeah,
agency based on experience.
100%, man. I love that. So, dude, that's awesome. One thing that you said that really stuck with me when I was on your call, and also on your YouTube videos as well, is that most agencies today are being treated like a gold rush, right? People are trying to dig as fast as possible instead of building an actual business. So break that down a little bit more. Why do you think that mindset is so common now, and how does it end up doing more harm in the long term?
Great observation. This is something that I really do believe in. It comes from the fact that I've been doing it a long time, I think, and I've seen a lot of agencies come and go in this space. You got to remember when I started my agency, there was no go high level. There was really all you did is sell leads. But when Iman Gaji entered the space, you guys probably all know who he is. When Iman Gaji entered the space, it created this paradigm that running an agency is about learning how to do sales really well, hiring a media buyer, and then sitting on a beach and drink pina coladas, which is just not the truth of what it's like to actually run an agency, right? Out of, like I said, in EasyGrow, I've coached thousands of people, and I would say 1 in 400 people actually get to that point. Most of the people, so maybe out of the 4,500 people I coach, I've seen maybe 10 people do that. Most of the people in this space end up turning this into a really satisfying career. And that may look like, for someone like myself, doing anywhere between sort of 1 to 4 hours a day, maybe. But for most people, that might be still doing 5, 6 hours a day, 7 hours a day. But at least you're doing something that you enjoy. So I think we're getting back to what you were saying. The reason I really hold that belief that it's people treat this as a bit of a gold rush is just because of the way it's being presented in the market is really just not how it is in the real world, given a big data set of 4,500 agencies. So it makes more sense. Like if we know that only 1 in 400 might get to that point where they're hands off, and the Imangajis of the world, let's say for instance, it makes more sense to structure and build your agency around what's the most realistic scenario, which is, hey, this is not going to, I'm not going to be the next Imangaji. I'm probably going to be somewhere in between. Maybe I should structure my agency for the long haul, knowing that, hey, I could be in this, doing this for a while. Might as well maximize the chance of making some good money along the way.
Right. Yeah, 100%. And I want to break that down a little bit later too, because I do have a question related to the longevity of an agency and how to actually get there, because I know a lot of people don't. But coming back to obviously the service delivery stuff and keeping clients long term, I have a question that's twofold, right? So when you look at a struggling agency, because I know that you look at thousands of these different businesses and you probably see a lot of different pain points and struggle that these guys are kind of experiencing. So what are the common service delivery mistakes that you see over and over again? And on the flip side, what should a proper service delivery system actually look like within a healthy agency?
Yeah, great question. So by far the biggest thing that I see that kills good agencies from a service delivery perspective, that is, and just basically kills motivation, is we are not in the game of selling a service. That's like the byproduct of what we do. We are in the game of controlling optics. That's what we do as agencies, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, we use cheap labor a lot of the time to get an outcome. So we're effectively a middleman most of the time, right? Now, what separates agencies that are able to keep clients for a long time and ones that can't is optics and ability to control conversation. That's really it. So what I see most of the time that I would argue is a mistake is most people are too afraid to have confrontational conversations with their clients because they're too worried about losing them. So then they don't do it. And then it becomes this untenable situation where the client's unhappy with you, but you have done nothing to control that situation at all. But so that's like the second thing. The main thing that I see is the most single critical part of a relationship with the client is the first touch point after the sale. So the onboarding basically process. Not enough agencies set the right expectations for clients when they start with them, and because of that, they just leave. Because you haven't set the ground rules of what it's supposed to be like to work with me or you as an agency owner. So I see that all the time. A lot of the problems, if you just peel back the layers and go to the root cause of the service delivery issues they're having, it's just a mismatch in expectations. They've either turned around because you haven't explicitly said that, hey, we're not going to help you with sales. Our job and our focus is to get you appointments. And we're going to get you really good appointments. And this is what the definition of a good appointment is. You'll get 3 weeks in with them. And they're like, oh, we haven't closed anyone because the appointments are shit. And it's like, well, actually, if you had just had a conversation with that client at the start and explained what makes a good appointment, then you wouldn't be having this conversation now. So that's what I mean by optics. It's like a lot of the times agency owners aren't advocating for their own position enough. And so the optics end up getting really skewed. Whereas at the start, you should be controlling the optics and going, this is what we do for you, this is why it's beneficial, and this is why we're going to get really, really good outcomes. And people do that in the sales process, but then as soon as they move away from the sales process, it's like flick a switch, turn it all automated, and sit on a beach and drink pina coladas. And then that's why it very rarely works.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And I'm really glad you brought that up too, because like one of the questions that I also asked you last time was related to that, client expectations, and you told me exactly what you're saying right now. And that was, I found that so true, because I think that's one thing I struggle with at my stage, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of the people watching this video, they're going to struggle with, right? They're collecting a payment from a client and signing them on, so they don't want to create that frame, right? That, hey, This is going to be a shit show, right? They're scared the deal might fall through if they set the expectations too hard. And one thing that you also said when you were explaining that is that you don't want to come across as like a service provider, but an actual advisor, right?
Yeah, trusted advisor,
So break that down a little bit more, because I feel like, I know you explained it a little bit more, but I feel like people need to hear that more clearly of like, how to set that frame and how to be an advisor as well.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of agencies, they kind of set themselves up to be a short-term solution for clients, right? Whether that's with their pricing, whether that's with the way they deal with the clients, they kind of just set them up to get knocked over, like as pins. the way you actually keep people in your agency is to move away from being to basically build a moat around your agency with the client. And the single best, you can't do that with service delivery because everyone delivers a service. You can't do that with price because then you're just going to go to the bottom of the barrel and compete on price. You have to use something that's tangible. And what I found the best strategy for retention and building a moat around you and the client against the rest of the market, to stop other agencies basically poaching your clients, is to transition from being a service provider that provides Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever you do for your client or reactivation or whatever, to a trusted advisor, right? Because ultimately, most of the businesses you work with, they have a weak spot, right? They have a blind spot, and generally it's marketing. Most of these business owners are hiring marketing agencies because they do not know enough about marketing themselves to do it themselves, right? So they are desperate for someone to fill that gap in their business, right? Now, that you coming in and providing the service fills the tangible gap, like actually puts something in the gap. But then they still haven't learned how to do the ads. They still haven't learned how to manage them. They still haven't learned that, these businesses have constant anxiety about, okay, well, how do I keep growing? If I hire this person, how am I going to get them booked out? Like if I buy this piece of equipment, how am I going to, make money to afford it? They're constantly thinking that, and they don't know the answer because they're not marketers. So I've always found transitioning to being a trusted advisor where, yes, we do Facebook ads for them, but they know that I know everything there is to know about marketing. So that anytime they have a question like that, they come to me, creates this huge moat where they keep you around because they know that you're going to cover that blind spot that they have in their business. And I have lots of clients that are like that. And, being an easy grower, I've had plenty of people try and poach my clients over the years because it's not hard to find who I work with. And a lot of them they constantly tell me, I'm getting approached by other agencies, but I'd much rather work with you because we've got a good relationship. And if you just peel back the layers of what that means, a lot of the time is these guys will just call me up at random and go, hey, Jimmy, I've got this opportunity to buy this truck. What do you reckon? How do you reckon we, make money doing it? I was like, what is the service? And we talk through it. And then it's like, actually, I would do this, this, and this. Then that generally leads to more work because they're like, let's do that. So becoming that trusted advisor just transitions you from being a commodity in their eyes to someone that becomes a critical part of their business. And if you become a critical part of someone's business, they'll never get rid of you. Yeah. And that's how our retention is so high. That's honestly the secret.
Right. I love that. I'm really glad you kind of went over that because I feel like that's advice that I need to hear. That's probably advice a lot of other people need to hear. So super helpful. Now I've got some questions related to hiring because I know that you talk about this on your YouTube, on your Instagram.
Yeah.
When do you think it actually makes sense for an agency owner to hire a media buyer? Right. Because I know that's one of the first things people tend to bring on. So I want to hear your thoughts on
that. This is a bit of a hot take and it generally goes against the trend of the industry, but most agencies don't need a media buyer, right? What they need is arms and legs. Because by design, if you are treating your agency seriously, you should learn how to do the job. Right? If you're a professional in any space, you should learn how to do the job, right? So if you learn how to do the job, you learn how to get results for your clients, you kind of have an idea of how the ads should be done. So there's a few arguments for hiring a media buyer. The biggest argument is that, they're going to come in and do things that I wouldn't do. Well, then hire a consultant, pay someone like myself and learn the gaps, fill the gaps in your knowledge by learning directly off someone else, pay them $1,000 and go, hey, Jimmy, can you just look at my ads and can we spend half a day just going through the things you would change? And then go and do it yourself. It's way cheaper, right? The problem when you hire an experienced media buyer is they're going to come in with their own hang-ups, their own ideas to do things. And if you know how to do the ads already, it's going to be very abrasive because they're going to be doing things that you would look at and go, I wouldn't do it that way. And it's very frustrating. So what I actually recommend people do is the model exists and it exists in private surgery. So if you look at a plastic surgeon in California, they're probably making $70 million a year. The plastic surgeons are driving around in Bugattis and things like that because they understand this concept of extension through arms and legs, right? So the way a plastic surgeon in California would work is there are certain things that only a plastic surgeon can do legally, right? That might be putting the implants into the actual person. They have to do that. Literally every part of that process besides that can be done by anyone that's legally qualified to do it. So like a junior doctor or a nurse or something like that. So what they do is they'll plonk 6 operating theaters in a square, and then they'll just walk into there, put the implants in, and then the team does the rest. Then they walk into the next one, do that. And they just walk in a circle all day, just putting implants in, and they might do 50 a day. That's how they're able to make $50 million. That's how, as someone that's really highly skilled, you amplify your ability to do the thing that only you can do, right? So what I always suggest people do is, instead of hiring a media buyer that's got experience, if you know how to do the ads already and you know how to deliver the service, hire a virtual assistant and teach them the way you want it done, and only do the things that you can do. So you might do absolutely every part of the process. Only part of the process you may do is come up with the actual ad. Say, for instance, right? The thing you would pay an experienced media buyer to do. Everything else can be done by someone else. They can put it together. They can put it on Facebook. They can check it. They can optimize it. They can do everything, to the point that they will get to the point where they know how to make the ads too. And then you've just basically got a really, really cheap media buyer that does it exactly the way you want, that won't cause any hang-ups with you because they're doing it the way you want it done. So I'm a big believer. So my agency is built. I don't necessarily have that many specialized roles in my agency. Everyone started as a VA and has just moved into more complicated roles through experience. And the only real expensive roles I have is I have an operations director who basically manages the team now. But I still do all the sales myself because I got a lot of free time. But let's talk about sales, the only thing I do with that process is physically sit on the call with the client. Everything before that, everything after that is done by VAs. Because I still feel like I'm the best person to sell what we do. And I believe that if we are trying to become a trusted advisor, I need to be part of that process so I can transition to being that. If I put a salesperson in that, they get familiar with them, but they don't have the experience, then I'm never going to be able to transition into becoming a trusted advisor for them. So yeah, I just believe that hiring a media buyer is, for most people, is just a pain avoidance thing. They want to do it because they don't want to take the time to learn their craft and their profession. But if you are serious about running an agency, you should learn your craft. And if you do, then you have no real need for a media buyer.
Right. That makes 100% sense. And, aside from media buying as well, because obviously there's a ton of other skills, within the agency space that people should learn themselves before they tend to outsource. One thing that was interesting last time on the call, you were helping somebody create an ad, right?
Yeah.
For one of their, businesses. And, you pulled it up on Canva. You took control of the screen. You put it into Canva. You were doing the headlines yourself. You were telling them the fonts and everything like that. And immediately my head went to, man, I would just probably put this into Nano Banana Pro or like some AI software and get it created entirely within, a few seconds. And I realized how, in a way, how messed up that is. Like, obviously it's good to kind of use these softwares and to your advantage, but at the end of the day, like I realize that I'm kind of like forgetting that skill that, you sit down, you do the work yourself, you understand why things need to be in a certain way.
Yeah.
With AI now, whether it's, custom coded funnels using ChatGPT or ads, creatives, videos, ARCADs, all that type of stuff, I feel like we tend to stop that side of thinking, right? We're not really like focusing too much on it. So I think that would be very important for you to talk a little bit more about too. Like, aside from media buying, what skills do you think people must master before they think about hiring and, getting into these softwares and making their life easier?
Yeah, fantastic. I'm glad you brought that up, because when I do the sales calls, a lot of people say that to me. They go like, how are you able just to come up with that stuff? And it's I've got the advantage of time. I've been doing it a long time, right? I did it before the era of AI as well. So before AI, how did any of us come up with that? It was literally that process I showed you. So I just have a different perspective on it. But I always have treated AI as an amplification tool, right? Not a replacement for what I know as a human being, but more like, in StarCraft 2, the Terrans have the guys with the big yellow suits that that can break rocks quicker than the Marines. It's like that. It's an exoskeleton. It just amplifies your current strengths to make them better. So if you're not very good at copywriting, or if you haven't put any time into knowing copywriting, then you can't look at the copy that the AI is writing and increase the chances of it working by your understanding, right? So I have always sort of said that AI has become a very, very good tool. It's helped, 80% of my agency is done with AI. But a lot of people are using it as an excuse to not learn things. At the end of the day, it's still a craft. It's still a professional service like anything else. You are charging these people a lot of money. You should at least give them the courtesy of actually kind of knowing what you're doing instead of it just being like, oh, I'm just going to let a robot do it all and hope it's right. Right? Because you are messing with someone's livelihood at the end of the day. Like these businesses you work with, they have wives, they have kids, they have mortgages. They can't afford for you to go, oh, sorry, the AI didn't work. The ads aren't working all too bad. Like it would break my heart if I knew that I was the cause of someone's business going bust because I didn't do my job properly, right? So like in saying that, the skills I think that every core skills that every agency owner should learn, communication skills, not just the ability to sell, that's one part, but the ability to handle confrontation is like a critical part of running an agency because you will deal with confrontation all the time, whether it's with clients or your staff or supply, whatever it is, right? Confrontation is just a natural part of the process of dealing with clients. And you knowing how to defuse situations and calm people down and get them to understand and hear what you're saying is a good chunk of what I do at EasyGrow is like teaching people that. Obviously, copywriting. I think learning, you don't have to be the best copywriter in the world, but understanding how copy affects human psychology and what the words you say and how they affect people's moods and things like that is really important. So understanding copywriting. I also think understanding how the platforms work. You don't have to be a media buyer per se, but you need to understand the mechanics of how Facebook actually gets people to look at an ad, how someone actually interacts with the ad, how a lead form works. You need to know the mechanics of the tools of the platforms you're using. And then also just the ability to build processes and systems. Learn how systems work and how they're supposed to work and how the ability to build processes is really important. And then a bonus one would be management skills, learning how to lead people. Those 5 things, if you learn those 5 things, you're basically perfectly set up to scale an agency to wherever you want to take it. But without all those skills together, at some point you'll get exposed, whether that's through clients or your team. And the problem with an agency is that you can grow them quickly, but they can also unravel really quickly. So you can have this flow-on effect of where one client's unhappy with you, and that leads to a series of events that causes several to be unhappy with you. And all of a sudden you're back down from 50K a month to 20, but you've got the expenses of 35K a month and you're in the hole. So I always tell people to take the time to learn those skills. There's no rush to getting to 100K a month. I know you want to go and sit in Dubai and sit on the Burj Khalifa or whatever and hang out there, but you've been on this planet for 21 years already. Doesn't matter if it takes you 6 months longer, right? Like it's better to learn those skills and significantly increase the chances of you staying there than speed running to 100K a month, being there for 2 months, and then having to leave with your tail between your legs because your agency blew up in the process.
Yeah. No, that makes 100% sense, dude. I love that answer. Like, that's amazing. I think people hearing that are going to be like, okay, I've got to dial down on every single one of those points. So super glad you went over each one. And then just talking a little bit more about the kind of internal part of your agency, because you said you've been running it for what, 10 plus years?
Almost 10 years. Yeah, it'll be 10 years sometime in February.
Has it been the same kind of same exact business, or did it go through different iterations?
No, the core model has not changed. A lot of you guys are going to laugh at me. I just sell raw leads to clients. I don't do any appointment setting. I don't do any qualification. I just sell raw leads, put them in a spreadsheet, give them to the client.
Not even Go High Level?
No, don't use Go High Level.
Really?
Yep. Because you got to remember, like when I started my agency, none of that stuff existed. So I spent the first 5 years of my agency doing that that was the only way you could do it. Could you imagine doing appointment setting without Go High Level? It's just impossible to do, right? So what I've learned, right, over the years is that the tools that we think are cool as marketing agency owners, a lot of times they don't actually marry up with the requirements of a business. That's why so few businesses will actually use something like Go High Level. You can tell them to use it. You can go, hey, all your appointments are going to be in here. But they won't use it. They'd much rather use a spreadsheet because it's too complex given the circumstances of the business. So saying that, that model, I've stuck to that model to this day. I still sell raw leads to clients, and I make 120K a month in revenue consistently. And I've done that for about 6 years. So I always say that as a counter argument to people that tell me, oh, you have to do appointments. And I'm like, well, clearly you don't, because I know a lot of guys that are in the same boat as me, that are a little bit older, that started earlier, that didn't have the choice and just grew agencies based out of necessity. Um, so yeah, as far as the actual model itself, that hasn't changed. The thought process of running an agency has changed a lot. So when I first started the agency, I went through this period where I was working part time because I still had to pay bills. But then when I went full time, I went from like doing 5-7 grand a month to 40 in like 6 months. I blew up because I had like 10 hours a day to do it, 15 hours a day to do it. So I was just going hard. Uh, then I went from 40 to 100 in probably a year, maybe slightly less a year. But then what happened is because I grew so quick, and I had no processes, no systems really, and I had a massive team, the agency just imploded. I had a massive nervous breakdown. I had one client, my biggest client, leave me and tell me the reason he's leaving is because the love's not there anymore. That caused a series of events that caused me to have a massive nervous breakdown, and I was ready to just destroy the agency. I said to my wife, I'm done. I'm just walking away from this. I don't give a shit if people sue me. I was just so done with it because I was making, 100K a month in revenue, but I was probably taking home about 15 of that, right? Because we had such high expenses because I was hiring to solve my problems. I'd get a problem, I'd go, oh, we need to hire a media buyer. I'd get a problem, we need to hire someone to do SEO. And I was just hiring pain away, right? The problem with that is that our margins steadily declined over time to the point where we were barely making money. And I came to this resolution that for $150,000 a year, given what I know about running an agency, I could just go and be a GM of someone else's agency and not have any of the stress and earn 150 grand a year. So why am I putting myself through this? So anyway, was ready to blow the agency up. My wife managed to talk me off the cliff and said, hey, just take a week off, come back and we'll work out a plan. So I took a week off and I literally just sat in a dark room playing PlayStation for a week. I literally did nothing. I just like vegged out, come back, sat down with my ops director and Pauline, and I said, why don't we just do this properly? Let's get rid of a big chunk of the client base to free up capacity, and let's just spend the next few months building out the processes and systems that we didn't build along the way. So we basically let go of probably 60% of the client base, took us back down to about $25,000, $30,000 a month. So we just kept the core clients that we've been working with for a very long time, got rid of the rest of them, which was painful in of itself. I fired 10 people because we had 15 people in the office, right? So we had 15 people inside the office in Mandurah. I let go of 10 of those people. And then the leftovers and ourselves, we just sat down and we just kept the clients going, but we spent probably 7 hours a day building processes and systems. And I said, I'm never going to be in that situation ever again where I want to just blow this thing up. So I've actually gotten to 7 figures twice. The first time was, in my opinion, the wrong way because it burnt me out. This way now, we're taking home probably 350 to 400 grand a year now of that million to whatever it is. So we have pretty good margins given the size we are. And the biggest thing is I only work a few hours a day. So, and the only reason that's happened is because we sat down and we focused and went, yes, we know how to grow quick, which most of the guys in this program do because who are watching this do because you've done courses that teach you how to sell, right? But that is not the only part of running an agency. If you just grow without having systems and processes to support that growth, you will eventually burn out and do something dumb, like I did, right? So I've learned that it's better to just slow down at specific points. I call them the status points. Slow down at specific points in your agency's growth, consolidate your processes and your systems, and then grow to the next phase. So the first status points around 10,000 a month, you could literally sit there. Most people can sit there, pay their bills, and could literally sit there forever, right? You're not going to Dubai, but you're also not going backwards. Sit there, consolidate your processes and systems, record everything, document everything, then grow to 25, 30-ish thousand dollars a month. You'll have the same problems. All those processes you built would have been stress tested, and they'll have to be adapted to a larger agency. Sit down again with the team that you've got, consolidate those processes, then go to 70. And when you're at 70,000, those processes that got you there will probably not be working anymore because the scale is so different at 70 to 30. Sit there, consolidate, and then 70 plus. Whatever you build at 70 plus should carry you a long way into the mid 6 figures. So I just think, see, with us, we spent 2-3 solid months doing all that consolidation in one big hit. Whereas we would have been better off if I could have done it again, slowing down at those points and maybe spending 2 weeks in each one of those points, really consolidating processes, so I didn't have the big pain at the end. You know, I would have just spread the pain into smaller bites. Um, and I just think about the millions I lost doing that, not doing that. And that's why I tell people to slow down, right? Like slow down your growth. You can always get people. That's not the end of not the hard bit of getting running an agency. It's not getting people. It's keeping them, right? What is going to increase the chances of you keeping them is providing good user experience, setting expectations, and providing good service. How do you provide a good service? With good processes and systems. So yeah, I'm just a really big believer in that because I never sat down and worked out how much I lost in that time period, but it'd have to be over $1 million, probably close to $2 million in lost potential revenue by having to start again. And I just don't want people to have to do that.
100%, man. And I think that's like the biggest piece of, that's the biggest thing that I get from you is just slowing down, because I think, as you're kind of mentioning, like nowadays everybody's just like, go, chat scale. Yep. I had you probably know Matt Shields. I had him I had him on the podcast as well. They had a company called Estate AI. I think that's what it was called. Chat scaled the ad spend like crazy, went from like barely anything to $200,000 plus. And that just burned down really quick, right? Ended up with a ton of bad reviews. And then they went through like different changes of ownership as well. And like that agency just doesn't exist anymore, like for that reason. And I think that there's so many people that don't slow down nowadays, right? Like they focus on the client acquisition part, but then it's like, oh shoot, now you've got the clients, service delivery, like you didn't really focus on. So I think like if there's one thing that everybody could take from this video is the whole thing of slowing down, because I think that'll save them in many ways.
There's this theory that I came up with that I've never really shared. So this is going to be interesting to see what people think of this. But like I said, I've coached a lot of young guys that are starting marketing agencies, right? And what I think it is that we have two lines, right, in an agency. So if it was like a bar graph, you have one line which is the revenue you generate, and then you have a second line that no one talks about, which is entrepreneurial IQ, right? What tends to happen in this space is that the revenue number, like if it was a bar graph, your entrepreneurial IQ is here, but your revenue number goes like this. And what I found is it always goes back to the level of entrepreneurial IQ you have. So you can blast to the moon, but if you haven't learned how to run a business properly, it will just go back to that number it should be at, right? So I think why I've been able to stay at the number I've been at for so long is because over time, my entrepreneurial IQ and my understanding of what I need to do as an agency and the skills, like we were talking about, the communication and all that, compounded and made that line bigger, and now my revenue matches that line, right? I think the biggest problem with this space is that people don't invest enough in that second line. So they invest everything into growing their revenue, but they invest nothing into growing the second line, which actually is what keeps you there. So, if I could give any piece of advice to anyone that's watching this, is that acknowledge that there's a second line there, which is your understanding of how to run an agency, and invest some of the time that you're investing into sales into that to grow that as well with your revenue. And then it will be what it is. But most people don't invest any time in their entrepreneurial IQ, and they invest everything into sales, and their revenue goes up, but then they don't understand how to do taxes. They don't understand how to deal with a person that's wanting to leave. And then those are the things that bring the numbers down. Next thing you get a $35,000 tax bill you can't pay because you haven't been paying appropriate taxes, or you have a critical team member leave and you weren't skilled enough to be able to keep them. And then those are the things that chip away at your revenue until it comes back to where your skill is. So I think investing in that entrepreneurial IQ is the secret to growing a sustainable agency over time. And I just don't think enough people do that.
100%. And it's funny because the last question I always ask in a podcast is, what's like one piece of it, looking back at the lessons and losses and everything that you've gone through, like what's one piece of advice that could genuinely change the life of the person watching and their business? And I think that's like the most perfect piece of advice. I'm not even going to ask you that question again, because that makes so much sense, and I haven't heard that before. And every, like, looking back at my journey, it's like, the months where it was really big, it was really nice, it almost felt like, sunshine and rainbows. It always does just come back to that point where it's like, hey, that's really where I'm actually at, that's where I should be. Exactly. But sure, I had those little months of where I was kind of, deviating from that. So that's insane. Like,
I'll quickly add to that too. A lot of the issue is that there's no way of speeding that up. Yeah. That growth as an entrepreneur, there's no secret to speeding that up. It's just experiencing things. That's why coaching is so important, like coaching in Cam's program and Easy Grow and things like that. That's why live coaching is really important, because you can accelerate that growth by learning through other people's mistakes. So, going in a coaching call and hearing how other people handle their ads and what they did wrong makes you better at ads through osmosis.
Right.
That's why I do the coaching. I don't necessarily financially have that big an incentive to do them, if that makes sense, because I probably make more just around my agency. But I really get a lot of satisfaction in seeing stuff just clicking for people and going, oh, wow, that's, if I can contribute. So my goal has always been to try and make this space better by slowing people down and making them understand that this is a real career and you're dealing with people's livelihoods. So really try and treat it like that. And every time I do a coaching call and see someone actually get that and go, actually, maybe I should just slow down for a little bit, that's worth way more to me than getting a new client, because I'm at the point in my career where that's not going to consequentially affect my life anymore. But seeing a young guy understand that and knowing that that's going to affect them for the rest of their life, that thought process of like, I don't need it right now, I'm just going to do it properly, will make them a better father, will make them better at business, will make them better at every facet of their life. It's really important to me, because there's just a lot of people in this space that have been sold this concept of quick money. Come in here, make as much money as you can because it's a gold rush. It's not. I've been doing this for 10 years. It's not going anywhere. Businesses have been needing marketing since the advent of the newspaper, since Billboard. Businesses in the future are still going to need marketing. So why is there a rush? It's like there is still not enough agencies for the amount of businesses out there. The market could quadruple in size and there still wouldn't be. There is just too many businesses for the amount of marketing agencies. So why is there a rush? So I'd much rather, if people took anything away from this, is just understand that you rushing to get the bag is only one element of the equation of running an agency. You should be looking at the intangibles of running an agency and going, what's more valuable to me? Get the bag now, but learn no new skills, or learn a whole bunch of new skills that come with running an agency: sales, marketing, running a business, dealing with people, dealing with clients, dealing with confrontation, all that, so that whatever I do next, I'll be better equipped to do it better. And you look at anyone that is really ultra successful, the Alex Hormozis of the world, the Grant Cardones in our space, what did they all do? They started marketing agencies and then moved to doing something else, because they learned a whole bunch of core skills that are very difficult to learn in any other online income stream. And then they took that and used that for whatever was next. And even Bo and Charlie at Easy Grow, they had a marketing agency and then transitioned to info product. In Mangaji, you can pretty much every single person started with a marketing agency, because it is the single best way to learn how to run a business online. And when you speed run through it, you just miss that most important part. That's all. So that's all I'd say to people, is just slow down, enjoy the ride, learn as many skills as you can while you're doing it. The money is a natural side effect of learning those skills, and go and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, 100%, man. I love that advice. Genuinely, I truly believe this online space needs more people like you. The guys that actually give this type of advice, rather than just, hey, scale your ad spend to $1,000 and go crazy, right? Go live in Dubai and enjoy on the beach. So this type of advice is, I feel like, what I needed when I was first getting started. But not just that, this is advice that I need now, right? And I know that this is going to be advice that I'm going to need even as I scale my revenue. So truly appreciate it, dude. I know that people are going to find a crazy amount of value from this episode, and awesome. They're definitely going to be able to change up some things and scale at a different level.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on. It's nice to be able to talk and advocate for that as well, because I've been making YouTube videos for a long time, and I get 50 people watch them, but the 50 people that do watch them, they watch every single one, because it's not actually that common to find people just sharing genuine sort of insights to what it's actually like and not selling hyperbole. So, exactly. There's I just chip away and just talk about things that I believe in, and some people like that. Some people would much rather watch videos about how to get to 100K in 6 months, but the guys that do, they appreciate that. So it's nice to have a bit of be able to say my piece and advocate the flag for hey, don't have to grow quick, just grow properly,
Exactly, and 100%, man. And the thing you said about your YouTube video, that's so accurate, because I started checking you out. We had this episode planned. I'm like, okay, let me take a deep dive into this person. Something I like to do with anybody on for a podcast. And I watched one video and I'm like, oh shoot, now I need to watch the next one. And I just couldn't stop. I went down this rabbit hole of just watching all of your stuff and seeing what you're talking about, because I'm looking at your channel. I'm like, hey, this is a guy with 10 years of experience. Like, how rare is it to go on YouTube, come on a channel, and be like, all right, this guy's a vet. He's been he's been in the industry for this long. You know what I mean? And that's so rare. So I'm like, everything that you're talking about just comes from experience. It's not just some little thing that you heard from somebody else. It's just based on experience that you've gone through. So I think
100%.
that's just insanely valuable. Speaking of YouTube, let's talk about everything that you're working on, and obviously everything that we're going to be linking below, where you want people to follow you as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm getting back into doing YouTube. I'm actually thinking, and I'm half tempted to hire a videographer and start doing just get a videographer following me around, because I do a lot of brick and mortar work as well, like going and seeing clients and stuff. So I think people being able to see how to interact with clients professionally could be of value. So I'm thinking of doing that. That's on my channel. I think it's called Uncle Jimmy Mitchell these days. So that's on my YouTube channel. And like I said, the videos on there, you're not going to find many sales videos, but they're all just based on practical experience. The beauty about doing the coaching calls I do is I hear a lot of problems. And so when I hear a problem that I think I have an answer to, I generally make a YouTube video about it and go, I was in a call, this person said this will help a lot of people. If you have this problem, do this. Now, there's no fancy cuts, there's no fancy thumbnails, it's really just my thoughts. And then also too, I have a school group, it's completely free. It's not, and I don't even have an upsell, it's not like that. It's more just, I was sick of there being so many sales SMMA groups. I wanted to create a service delivery one that's based around fulfillment and service delivery. And ironically, it's now one of the busiest school groups on School, because everyone in there communicates. If you post something, there'll be 7 or 8 people that reply. So it's a very active group, and it's all people that are just wanting to run agencies better. It's called Service Delivery Kings. That's just my contribution to the community for those people that can't afford programs like Cameron's or Charlie's. Should still be able to get help when they need it as well. So I go in there occasionally and just make Loom videos, sharing thoughts and answering people's questions. So feel free to join that. It's called Kings, school.com/Kings. Completely free. There's I'm not selling a program or anything in there. It's just more a way of being able to give back to the community and practice what I preach. That's really it. Instagram, the others, but mainly YouTube and School.
Awesome. Yeah, everything's going to be linked below. So we'll have the school group linked. We'll have the YouTube linked. We'll have your Instagram linked. So make sure you guys go ahead and follow Jimmy everywhere. Believe me, this is someone you're going to want to stay on top of, everything that he kind of produces and really kind of, learn from what he's talking about, because it's truly rare to come across people like this. And I know that, as your channel blows up, I know that stuff like that will actually have a much stronger impact in a person's business than the typical YouTube stuff nowadays with agencies, right? So truly appreciate you coming on the channel, my friend. It was a great time chatting with you.
I really enjoyed that. It was nice to talk. I haven't done many of these. I get asked all the time, but I haven't done many, but I might have to start doing a few more, because I really enjoyed this conversation. And thank you for having me on.
100%, man. And hopefully we can, plan a round 2 eventually too, based around something else. That'd be awesome.
Amazing. That'd be
Perfect.
really good.
Awesome. Thanks once again, dude. And I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.